there was a pressure, I think, internally in our own heads of like, are we sustaining the tension enough? Instead of jump scares, we were thinking about sound design already in strategic moments where we could mix it and it's actually more present and it almost feels like internal inside their heads. So I think that's what we did in lieu of like trying to figure out jump scares.
And we were trying to like attempt to do like, can like a potent philosophical idea replace a jump scare?
Yeah.
Like that's what we were attempting to do.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a sadist menaces a pair of Mormon missionaries in director Scott Beck and Bryan Wood's psychological horror, Heretic. The film follows two young women ensnared in a deadly game of cat and mouse when they knock on the door of the diabolical Mr. Reed. Trapped in his home, they must turn to their faith if they want to make it out alive. In addition to Heretic, Beck and Wood's other directorial credits include the feature films The Bride Wore Blood, Nightlight, Haunt, and 65, the movie for television Spread, and episodes of 50 States of Fright. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Beck and Wood spoke with director Michael Mohan about filming Heretic. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
All right. So, hey, everybody. I'm Mike.
I'm Scott. Yeah.
I'm Bryan.
This was my second time seeing the film. And there's so much. I could talk about this for a really long time, but we only have 30 minutes. I love this so much. I love that it, as someone who made a less subtle movie about religion earlier this year, I made this film called Immaculate. And at the end, Sidney Sweeney kills baby Jesus. But in this movie, it's a much more subtle ending with the beautiful shot of the butterfly. And it just takes my breath away. Let's start at the beginning. So you guys write the script together. How do you, and I know this is an audience of directors. I'm going to ask a couple of writer questions. So indulge me. How do you write long dialogue scenes together? Does one of you take a pass and the other one takes a pass? How do you make it flow so natural? It doesn't feel like overworked at all,
Separately. We learned very early to write separately. We were so inefficient when we were working together because we get distracted. We've known each other since we were 11 years old. So like distraction meant like playing video games, when we first started writing scripts. But no, we pass sequences, and it could be like a 5-minute scene or it could be like a 20-page scene or something, and pass them back and forth. And what that does for us is we all kind of know like where the movie starts and where it's going to go, but then we leave a little bit of like a gray area in between for invention. And so if like Bryan writes, part of the Monopoly scene and sends it to me, then I get to react to a certain degree as the first audience member, where I'm like, okay, I know we were going to hit this beat and this beat, but Bryan added something there and that's really cool. Or Bryan added something there and I think it can work better. And then it's having a conversation about that, passing pages back and forth. And it's like this ever evolving thing that when you get to the first draft of the script, it really is like the 5th or 6th draft of the script because we've ironed over it.
The other thing that we like to do, like the more movies we're lucky enough to work on, we've realized that writing independently and in a private place has become an important part of our process. Like we talk about how like if we feel like we're doing good work, if the work is embarrassingly personal, like it's like you wouldn't want anyone looking over your shoulder and being like, what are you writing over there, what are you talking about, like that's like we feel like that's when we're in the zone. So we're not those writers that write together in the same room. We're not the writers that go to Starbucks and like open final draft. We want to be in like a little cave alone, saying weird things on the page.
Do you break the story together first and then you sort of go off, or you said you break it like 80% of the way?
In chunks, and it's just conversation. Oh, like what if this, they go to this house and they have this theological conversation and then maybe this happens. So we're just talking to each other in the room. So we do kind of break the like broad strokes of the story together by talking it through. And then we the outline starts very fuzzy. And then as we write, the outline gets sharper and sharper.
So for this script, how long did it take?
Well, the initial idea was 12 years ago. But it wasn't like writing that script throughout that entire time. So much of it was having the core idea of like two Mormon missionaries knock on this door of this man who's going to challenge their beliefs. And then that was the inkling of the idea 12 years ago, but then push the pause button to fill our heads with all the different ideologies that Mr. Reed was investigating so that it could be written from that viewpoint. And in the interim, we were writing other scripts, A Quiet Place was one of those that also had been gestating for like 12 years. And then in earnest, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 months or something. It just vomited out at that point.
We always knew we wanted to write it in a burst. It felt like because we wanted it to be a dialogue. The lamest, oldest inspiration is Plato's the Phaedrus, which is this dialogue between Phaedrus and Socrates that's about discourse and love, but it's accessible because it's in the format of dialogue. And to us, dialogue is something that you want to be stream of consciousness. We wanted this movie to be a dialogue. So it was about filling our heads with stuff and then getting ready. And we were excited. We were like, we're going to do our religion movie, but we had to be ready for it. And
for a talkie movie, I mean, you've got so much tension because the instant you're there, you're like, can I trust this man or can I not? I've seen the trailer. I can't, so I'm afraid of what he's going to do next. So you have the script and so did you just send it to the whole town? Did you already have your producers locked in? How did that work?
We really wanted to find a cool producer that would frame the material in a certain way because we felt like some of the movies we had made prior were a little bit more horror centric, and this is a horror film for sure. But we just wanted somebody to almost brand the movie and guide the movie and be a mentor to us. And so we sent the script to a few of our heroes, and Stacey Sher, who produced Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained and a million other wonderful movies, was one of those producers, and she raised her hand to be a part of the process, and so we kind of linked arms and with that team in place, took it out the way you would kind of take a project out. And it's, when we wrote the script, we were like, nobody's ever going to want to make this movie. We thought it was kind of a weird movie that seems ridiculous, but, the marketplace was kind of the indie, the cool indie studios like A24 were excited. And then some of the bigger studios were like, we'll make this movie. But we got to get rid of all that religion talk and the philosophy and that. So it was that kind of conversation. And of course, those were the things we were excited about.
They wanted to make a short film.
Cat and mouse and girls trapped in a dark space and
and so you partner with A24, which is every filmmaker's dream, and what were the conversations in terms of their notes and their it sounds like they knew what. It sounds like you had pitched it properly.
No, one of their first things was what does Mr. Reed look like? What's his wardrobe? And that's one of the best things that can be said in an initial meeting because we're starting to talk about what does the movie look like? And it's not diving into script development. And, this was a situation where actually the nuts and bolts of it is we did a negative pickup with A24. And so we controlled the entity, but licensed it to A24. But that being said, A24 was incredibly instrumental in being creative partners. And that comes down to starting to figure out how do we put this together? How do we find the right place to shoot this? Where do we build the sets? And then, the ultimate question of who do we cast in this role? And those were really fun conversations because, there were the typical names that you could expect. And we were in a very lucky position where the script actually started leaking before it was officially submitted. And so we actually started getting a few movie stars to raise their hand and be we want to play this. And it was alluring at first, like some of the names that were coming up, but then we had this list and we kept looking at the name Hugh Grant, which I don't think other studios necessarily would be like, oh, he's the guy for this movie, and he's the one that, you know, is bankable. And for A24 and for us, it was just like, that's the most interesting artistic decision. Yeah. But it was not an obvious one until we really started having those conversations and thinking about, we need someone that is disarming, we need someone that is very charming, that feels safe enough, but kind of keeps you on edge. And maybe it's because he's British and these are two American women. Maybe it's because, you know, he has a different eccentricity about the way that he talks about religion, and he's not sure where the line is, where he's friendly or maybe crossing the line. And then he keeps pulling back. And when we started reading the script with him, we were like, it's Hugh Grant. Like, there is no other submission that we can make at that point.
And so how long did it take to get it into his hands and for him to respond to it?
That's a great question. I think we sent it to him. So we did the kind of like, I would almost characterize it as an amateur move, but we were like, when we realized it has to be Hugh, we were like, we called up CAA, all of our agents, and A24, and we're like, everyone, it's Hugh. It has to be Hugh. No one else can play this part. Please do everything you can to make sure he reads the script and is excited about it. And the reason I say that's like a amateur move is because if Hugh Grant says, I don't want to do this movie, we can't go, just kidding. Actually, this person's the only person who can play this. And, you know, you kind of do that once, and that's that. And so everyone made best efforts to get it to him. And he read it. It felt like a year, but I think it was like 2 weeks probably.
He then was like, let's hop on a Zoom session, and we hopped on the Zoom, and I think we kind of launched into our pitch. And we're like, and it's, you know, it's about religion. And for us growing up in Iowa, like, religion is the one thing if you bring up at the dinner table, you're going to lose family members. You're going to lose friends. It's like incendiary. And he was like, yeah, in my experience, religion, you just talk about it. It's not a big deal. And we're like, oh no, we're losing him already. Oh, God. and yet the Zoom meeting really was like that feeling out session of like, what sets him off. And one thing was like, he kept asking questions about the character that weren't on the page. And you could see the wheels in his head turning. And I think he was debating, you know, this is going to be a lot of work and a lot of like backstory to make sure that everything feels motivated and that he's living in his skin. And we got off that Zoom session. And then I think like maybe it was like a week or two later that he really was committing to it. And what progressed from there was like 4 months in like pre-production of trading emails back and forth, where he ostensibly was building out, in his words, like a 200-page autobiography of Mr. Reed.
That's awesome.
And so cool. He would write us these like emails that would like be pages. They would be like a essay about something Reed did or thought about. And then he'd be asking questions about some of the references that we're making, like in the historical context. And then we'd write him an essay back. And that was really helpful for our process, because one of the tricky things about having two filmmakers is that when an actor like Hugh asks a deep question in person, you can't, like, our brains can kind of mind meld, but not really. So we're kind of answering in real time before we've had a chance to discuss. And it was so helpful, Hugh's process, because we'd receive an email and then we could talk about it and go, oh, like I kind of saw it like this. And I kind of saw, and it gave us a chance to get on the same page about things, as opposed to kind of just BSing our way through it and pretending like we know exactly what he's asking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it means that like everyone is making specific decisions, but they're the same specific decisions. Because like, for instance, like tone, I wanted to ask you about the tone of the film, because like what he's doing is so dark. Like he is keeping people in cages underground, and yet the movie's really fun. And so it's oftentimes hard to make that balance where you're not going into that territory where you suddenly are making this movie that like there's another like skew of the same material that is almost like off-putting, you know, but here you're able, you're inviting the audience to be a part of it, and somehow the genre is opening you up to these conversations that are happening versus alienating you, you know?
The tone was one of the hardest, was the scariest thing, I think, for us, because we knew if you're only like building tone of dread, you're going to exhaust that very early. But we also knew if you pierce the dread too often, then you start deflating that. And So, you know, there's moments in the script of when he's bringing up the idea of polygamy, and then he undercuts it by like, let's talk about fast food, which is something that Bryan and I are very passionate about. So it felt personal. We were trying to make sure that there's enough of a hook where you're getting the theological debate in like a more heady way, but then it's also speaking to the audience in metaphors at times to make it more fun and more accessible, but also finding that levity that somebody hopefully could pull off. And as soon as like Hugh sat into the role, we were like, oh, this is going to be an easier job as directors from a casting perspective. But of course, you still have to monitor like the exhaustion that you might be putting the audience under, or putting them under too much duress. And so like what we did to try and do our best to alleviate that issue was shoot in chronological order. And so everything that we did from a scheduling standpoint was in the essence of trying to build that tone and get, you know, Sister Pax and Sister Barnes, the actresses Chloe and Sophie, situated in those roles to build as organic of an unveiling of the moments, of the beats, of the reveals, of the emotions as much as we could.
Yeah. And I would say like we didn't have a lot of money to make this movie. It was smaller, but all of our resources went into shooting in chronological order and having enough days to shoot the movie in a way that we felt like comfortable with, that we could like actually have. You never have enough time. And even in this situation, of course, there's like, oh, I wish we had, 5 more days or something, but the resources were allocated in a way that it was trying to protect time.
Absolutely. I mean, because the other thing too is like a scene, like you're also not shooting it with standard coverage. Like right. I mean, at times you hang back, to let them do their thing, but like you're also always trying to reinvent visually what you're seeing so that it's not too static at the same time. And so what was your process like in terms of like, do you do overhead diagrams? Is it, you feel it on the day after rehearsal? How do you approach that?
Well, we have to do overhead diagrams because Scott and I write in like a dream logic. And then we always, it never fails. It's like, we start visualizing the movie and I'm like, okay, so they go to the door on the left and Scott will be like, I thought that door was on the right.
Oh yeah. Like
we always have that thing where it's just like opposite.
Well, Bryan's left-handed. I'm right-handed.
Yeah. I think there might be like a scientific reason for that. But historically we storyboard every single frame of any movie that we make because it gives Scott and I a chance to kind of argue out our ideas and plan and it form a mind meld. And this movie was actually a little different because we felt that it had to be performance first, that it was all about these 3 performances being amazing. And we promised Hugh early on that we're trying to make cinema. We want this to be the most visual chamber piece you've ever seen, but we promise we won't get in your way or restrict your performance with a camera move or something. And yet at the same time, we wanted the film to kind of have this controlled aesthetic. Like our feeling was like thematically, we're talking about control. Like we want every shot to feel intentional. We want to we want to change access halfway through. So we had all these things. So with our cinematographer Chung Hoon, who is wonderful. It's done everything from Old Boy to Last Night in Soho, brilliant cinematographer. We developed this kind of conceptual idea of making sure every set had dance floor so that we didn't have to lay dolly track. We could do intentional design dolly shots, but actors aren't tripping over track and just, try to watch the performance, watch the rehearsal, look at our storyboards and see what translated to what was happening, but not get in anyone's way.
Yeah, which is the hardest thing to do because all you want to do is play when you're like, okay, I only have this, we're only in this one room. So how many different ways can we shoot it? And yet it would be so easy to become gimmicky with it. Yeah. And the only time you're like, hey, I'm going to show off. And I talked to you guys at the premiere about this is that shot where it like goes behind him, then over to them and then around. But it also is perfect for where they are in the story in terms of they're coming together and moving apart. I just love it. I love the design of it. And I love the commitment to going, oh, we're going to be in this room for, I don't know, what is it, like 18 minutes? And then we're going to be in this room for 18 minutes. Yeah. And it's just such a bold decision to do that. And you do it so confidently. Were there ever any pressures to add jump scares during those moments?
There's always,
it was honestly like, there was a pressure, I think, internally in our own heads of like, are we sustaining the tension enough? And so there were moments like really close, like in the last week of pre-production, in the living room where Bryan and I were like, oh, we should have the lights turn off at a certain point. Like that was something that was very late.
That wasn't on the page. That was like us getting nervous that this movie was going to be like watching paint dry or something.
And then it became a debate of like, okay, where in this 18-minute long scene do we plant that? Because it could go 4 places, but there's going to only be one that is like perfect. And so it was, scrambling to really dissect the material and figure that out. In the living room, instead of jump scares, we were thinking about sound design already and using the dripping water and the shishi adoshi that dunks to play that in strategic moments where we could mix it and it's actually more present and it almost feels like internal inside their heads. So I think that's what we did in lieu of like trying to figure out jump scares.
And we were trying, and this is admittedly obnoxious, but we were trying to like attempt to do like, can dialogue, can like a potent philosophical idea replace a jump scare?
Yeah.
Like that's what we were attempting to do.
Yeah.
Like, can you do a movie that, you would like typically expect the kind of jump scares. And then instead it's just like a dark thought that somebody has or something that they say. And that's where the dread comes from.
Or even just Sister Barnes taking the power in those scenes. Like it happens twice where she's doing it and you're like, oh, damn. Oh, this is not going to end well for her.
Right. Yeah.
And she knows it later when she's like, take this, it's like a letter opener type of thing. Right. And she's aware of it. And that's the other thing is like, it's so nice to see a horror movie where the characters are just so smart. And so they're consciously aware that they might be in danger and they're trying to figure out the best way to navigate the situation. And every time I'm like, I buy everything that they're doing. And they're also just perfectly cast too. Especially, I really appreciated Chloe's performance this time because it's less of a showy performance, but she knows her character so well. And what I'm wondering is, in prep or in pre-production, like what sort of things did you do? Like, did you like something I do? I always send my actors out bowling just so that they get comfortable with each other. Like,
really?
What do you do?
Do you go bowling with them or they go on their own?
No. They have to go on their own.
I love that.
They can talk about me.
That's terrific. Yeah.
But like what sort of things did you do to like warm them up or were you more deliberate? Like stay away from, you're not going to meet Hugh until the day or,
No. I mean, we had like a week and a half of rehearsals and it wasn't like full day of rehearsals because there were still so many pre-production things we had to monitor, but, we did the rehearsals, but there also was a degree at which Sophie and Chloe playing Mormon missionaries, like the idea of Mormon missionaries are you're sent to another place entirely, sometimes another country, and you're paired up with somebody and it's not like it's your best friend. And so feeling alienated from somebody is kind of what a film set is like. Like all of a sudden you're two actors put with each other. And so there was a degree at which by design, but also by logistics, like there wasn't much time to get to know each other. But we did like a week and a half of rehearsals and these long scenes, it didn't feel like that was much time to like basically rehearse a stage play. And so it was terrifying to us. Like the first day we go to block the library scene, which is like 35 pages. And Bryan and I have our overhead schematics and such. We know ostensibly where everybody needs to end up. And we're trying to do like a loose blocking, but there's so much dialogue, especially for Hugh, that we were all tripping over our own like feet and our lines and such. And we left that first day of rehearsal just being like, this is a disaster. Like this
we're seeing it. Like I'm seeing it. We're looking at each other going, this is a disaster. We're looking at Hugh. He's looking at us. We can tell he thinks it's a disaster. It was really scary. And we kind of got out of it because like Hugh is such a veteran. He just knows like how to like solve these things. And so the next day he's like, what if we just like read the script instead of trying to like jump around? Exactly. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, that would have been smarter as directors if we had just started with the simple read through.
That happens though. I mean, your first day is supposed to be a show, right? Like, and then you all bond because you made it through.
Right. Totally. Exactly. That's so true.
And it helps so much to like hear it out loud. Cause again, we didn't have the benefit of like that much time. So we were just looking at these behemoths of scenes and being like, we have to just figure everything out at once, but to like, just really take it one step at a time. And again, shooting it chronologically allowed us to, shoot into like the first quarter of that scene and then come back the next day and back up just like 2 pages and get our rhythm back up. And it kept feeling like we're ironing like one piece of the shirt at a time. And what that allowed was Hugh to really like get super comfortable in these like very verbose like scenes. And then he could just make it come alive every single take after take, like would feel slightly different because he would have that playful nature of like, all right, we did it that way. Let's try it again. Or we'd be like, let's play the darker version of it instead of, Mr. Reed having fun, and it activates something different in him. So
I'm sure also he just needed to do that. So he wasn't repeating himself for all that coverage. So did you, in terms of your coverage, thank you. In terms of your coverage plan, did you start with like the more basic sort of meat and potato stuff, and then as the day went on, you went, okay, let's recover this moment, and I'm going to do it in this more complicated shot? Or did you box yourself into certain editorial decisions based on how you shot?
I think like we started pretty wide. I mean, this is not like this is obvious stuff, but like started pretty wide, usually in wide masters. But we would run the scenes from beginning to end, usually, unless it was like in the library where you're talking about like a 30-minute scene. Like we would break that up into chunks, but we would do major chunks each time, which the actors all really loved. And actors don't always love that, sometimes, as you know, sometimes that's exhausting or just not how they like to work. But I think it really helped, even like Chloe and Sophie, like to be able to feel like they're living the scene rather than like jumping in and pretending, but to like get exhausted, like the exhaustion that they went through over the course of the shoot, but also in a given day was really helpful. Oddly, it kind of like put them in the mindset, and it was tough for them, but they did great. And the other thing I wanted to say, because you're talking about the authenticity and the kind of truth that Sophie and Chloe were finding, they both were raised Mormon. So their background of being raised in the church and having family members in the church, like that truth is like something they know and they brought to the characters every single day.
Did you know that when you cast?
It's crazy. We didn't know it at first. We knew it, but before we like made the final decision, but we kept calling back, especially Chloe, because she performs with this kind of missionary Utah accent that if you know a lot of LDS people, you hear it. And so there was this truth. We kept like going to Carmen Cuba. We're like, can we find more people like Chloe? Like there's something about this where we couldn't articulate. And then Carmen eventually let us know. She's like, well, I mean, they were raised Mormon. That truth that you're attracted to is real.
That's amazing. We're actually running out of time already. So I'm going to jump through, and I want to get to, you said earlier, we were talking about compromises, which I think is like a director's number one job, is to figure out how to compromise, because you never have enough resources. What are those things for you? What were the battles that you chose the battle of shooting in sequence, which I think was really smart, but then, because it does, I don't, like every director, you're like, I don't see a single compromise. It feels like this is exactly how it was in your brain, and then you got it on the screen, and that was that. Especially with regards to the sound design, guys. Like it's so amazing in this theater how you utilize the surrounds to orient where he is in the scene and where the music is, especially tied to those camera moves. But like, what were the things where you were like, okay, I'm letting this one go, or did you agree on what you wanted to compromise on too? We were really well supported on this movie.
I know. It's like the first, like you could ask us on any other movie we've directed and we could sit here for 3 hours telling you the compromises. For this, like it really felt like there was a spirit of openness at which we tried to approach this. Part of that was from a technical thing. Like we were saying, usually we storyboard meticulously, but we wanted to free up, the world for the actors a little more. There's compromises in, we need the score done in 4 weeks, basically from start to finish. And you always wonder, like, more time, what would that do? But then I listened to the score and I'm like, I feel like it captured the heart of it. And our composer was on board even before we started shooting. And so he was living with the movie for that time. So even though it was 4 weeks, it was just pouring out of him after sitting on this for a year. So I sit here and it's weird to say, there's not an immediate compromise that comes out. And I think it was because this movie was so personal that like getting any part of this movie on screen, if you get 50% of your script on screen, that feels like a win. And to us, it felt like the heart of what we were trying to get across came out in this unfiltered in a way that never has. So I can't really like look at it as compromise. I just look back at it with gratitude for all our partners, for A24 that really gave the freedom to make a movie like this, and Hugh and Sophie and Chloe, who just were always there like as late as possible, even when we had to go like in overtime and Hugh had been wrapped for the day, but we had to shoot their coverage. He stuck around to like perform with them and vice versa. So yeah, I mean, it's weird to say, but I just look at it with like love in my heart. So yeah.
Yeah. And I've got this like Scorsese thing that's like rolling around in my head that he was talked about. I was like Gangs of New York or something, but like how like every movie throughout the history of cinema is a compromise. It's a negotiation with the studio you're working with and the actors and your ability to make the thing under those set of circumstances is kind of the job. And so it's the idea of compromise or regret is something we're working hard to erase from our point of view and our mindset, and just accept that directing is wrangling chaos and doing your best.
And also like doing a really good job of managing your mental health during it too. It's what it sounds like. I think we should end on that note. So everybody, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming out and seeing this on this incredible, beautiful screen.
The best
here.
theater
Thank
in
you.
the world. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America